Thank you, family, for being here with your cup or bowl of water. Go ahead and hold your vessel with both hands, bringing this vessel close to your heart with your eyes closed or not, whatever you desire. Take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. As we inhale, we root ourselves into the earth. As we exhale, we feel this connection underneath us. As we inhale, we lengthen our spines, relaxing our shoulders, allowing our pillar of light to connect from under our sit bones to the tops of our heads, through to the top of our crowns, connecting with the heart of the sky. We feel this pillar of light and connection through us, with us, for us. As we continue to breathe, we acknowledge all the elements, all the directions that guide us unconditionally. And we especially give gratitude to the element of water, the element that connects all life, all information, all memories, allowing us to reflect and receive the abundant information and abundance of love, energy flowing freely within and around us. We give gratitude for the water, the blood of this earth, allowing us to breathe in and breathe out, connecting all of our organs, connecting all that is. We give gratitude for water is life, and life is energy, and energy is love. We feel this love, this conscious entity in our hands, in our hearts, within and all around us. We give thanks to the water. We honor water. And it is with this water we are able to commune, to connect, and to share. Thank you for being with us, family, as we continue this conversation and exploration of how water is used as a modality of healing, a way to free our emotions. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you, water. I love you. You can feel free to offer this water to any living thing in your home or into your bodies. Feel free to share your vibration into your vessel as well. And know that this water is receiving this information, receiving your beautiful vibration. Thank you, family. All right. So, welcome. This is going to be our third offering, I believe, and this is something that we definitely want to continue as we develop our platform of sharing information and education about water and the importance of water in our lives. And we decided to host this space because about 2 weeks ago, we took a trauma sensitive facilitation training. And because I work as an educator and as a yoga instructor, and also as a social worker, I deal with a lot of clients, and especially with the crises that have been going on, there have been a lot of people that we interact with that have a lot of bias, a lot of experience with trauma. And in this facilitation training that we took, we realized that all of this is related to water as well. So, what can we do in response to sharing what we know of how water has helped us deal with the traumas that we've experienced? So, James, would you love to share your experience of water and how it helped you physically as a child?
Yeah, my experience with water started, as it all did for all of us, being in a womb. 99% water, this beautiful egg in which we get to develop, and at some point during the 260-day gestation period, we decide that our soul will be entering into the physical form. And so I think that's one of the beautiful things that we all share in common, is we're all born with water, and we all share the womb space together. But at a young age, just a little over a year old, when I was at a daycare center, I had a traumatic experience first happen to me with water. They were boiling some pacifiers and some feeding bottles at the care center where I was where I was for the day, and they had a hot pot of boiling water, sanitizing the pacifiers and the feeding bottles, that somehow came and fell on me. And so the hot pot landed on my neck, and I still have this beautiful mark to always remind me of that. And all the boiling water poured down my back and my shoulders, and it resulted in me having third-degree burns and second-degree burns all over my neck and my shoulders and my back. And one of the first things they do when you have these types of third-degree burns is they take you to whirlpool therapy. So they submerge you into very cold water, just above freezing, and in a whirlpool that's swirling, in order to calm and take the heat out of your body. And that was a pretty traumatic experience for me. I, as a young kid, could not go into indoor pools. I was terrified of having water splashed in my face. I couldn't take any showers because the water could get splashed in my face. I was terrified of being in cold water. So being in the ocean was, in the northern hemisphere, was pretty much out of the question for me. The Gulf of Mexico is okay though. And really had a profound impact, because in school we have to go into the water and have swimming class, and I eventually was able to get diagnosed with a psychological excuse in order to be excused from going into the pool, and during summer camp being excused from being in the pool. And so that really had a pretty profound experience on me. And yeah, that was not my first traumatic experience with water. It started at a very, very young age. And that has transformed me in a lot of ways and given me a lot of opportunity to go within and seek truth and go through a lot of healing on myself. And what I realized, one of the most effective ways to do when you get burned by water, or burned by fire, or have a traumatic experience, is just going back into that same thing and turning around and facing your fear. And there's a beautiful story of a man who had repetitive recurring nightmares where he was getting chased by the boogeyman or some type of monster. And after years and years of being woken up in night terrors by being chased by this mysterious monster, one night he became lucid in his dream and he turned around and he said, "Why are you always chasing me?" And the boogeyman responded, "That's for you to know. It's your dream." And so I think this is a really good metaphor for us, a really good story illustrating that sometimes it's not serving us to be running away from the things that fear us most. And all the growth and expansion, allowing us to have greater love is when we can turn around and face our fears. And so it took me a long time to realize this, but nowadays, when I get to the ocean, I dive headfirst into the wave. And I've been integrating cold showers into my daily routine. And I'm going to be a summer camp counselor to spend part of my days really learning how to play like a child and learning from children this summer. And so I get to go back to that same pool that was so traumatic for me during summer camp and go back and reface my fears that way. And it's really been a beautiful lesson to reintegrate water into my life in a healing and beneficial way. And through my own healing, we create collective healing. It's when we heal ourselves that we could heal the collective whole. Because water has this beautiful property of having a quantum information exchange. It's an instantaneous information exchange. So whatever happens to one body of water, us being bodies of water, happens to all bodies of water all instantaneously. And so it's really a beautiful thing.
Thank you. And for me personally, water, specifically the ocean, has helped transform my perspective. So ever since I was young, I would love to surf, and I realized that it was through surfing I could be alone, but I also was on my own. So I really had to learn how to continuously look over my back and know just learn how to integrate my rhythm with the ocean. I would go to the ocean whenever I was sad and cry and physically ask the ocean, because the ocean for me had all the answers of why was I experiencing this, and please show me what it is that I have in store for me. And it was with those clear questions when I approached the ocean when I received these answers. So moving forward, we would love to share some pretty important things that we feel everyone should know about water. One, water carries information, and especially in frozen water. I digress.
Yeah. I could go on for a long time, and I don't want to take too much time, but the main premise of this: water carries all the vibrational information, and everything has a specific song. Everything has a specific vibration or frequency that it carries, and that's what makes us so unique. It's this vibration that gets expressed, and the most easy way to see this is we are all 99.9% water molecules, and yet it's this 0.01% or less that brings about all of this diversity that we see, all the beautiful diversity that we see among people and plants and animals, even though we share 99.9% in common as water molecules. And this can also be beautifully expressed as snowflakes. Every single snowflake is built of exclusively water. It's water in its purest form. And as it comes through the sky, it collects all the different vibration of the temperature it's being exposed to. It picks up, the wind speed. It picks up the barometric pressure, the amount of electricity that's in the air, the specific where the planets are aligned as it's being formed. And all of these various factors go into the vibration that hits the water as it's forming snowflakes. And just as humans, we have this beautiful diversity where no two snowflakes are ever alike. And it's because of this is a great demonstration of how water carries information and how water stores information. And we can see this again in the snowflake when water's frozen. It is a screenshot. It's sort of a time machine. It's the backup file, if you will, for exactly what happened during that time and when the water was frozen. And this is also a perfect metaphor for trauma, because whenever we experience too much frequency or too much vibration all at once through a traumatic experience, whether it be burning or experiencing someone's death or being in a car crash or some type of being touched the wrong way as a young child, or being in war zones, whatever the trauma or traumatic event is, the commonality amongst it is that it is a frequency of such great magnitude, such great force, that it doesn't get processed fully at once. It's a flow of chi or energy or prana or vital life force energy that comes into our body, comes into our experience, that is so strong that it can't be processed or engaged with or handled all at once. And so the body's response is to take a screenshot of that. And it does that by taking water and freezing it. And it freezes it in a different form of water. It's not actual ice that's sitting in our body, but it's very similar, because what it's doing is it's arranging certain water molecules in a specific configuration and keeping that as a scaffold. So even as water molecules come into and out of our body, the scaffolding or the skeleton, the imprint of that shape of the water is being trapped and frozen within ours. So it's a screenshot of that specific vibration, that specific energy that has come into our bodies.
So we feel that trauma, in a way, is when it is these waters receiving this experience and us not having experienced the emotion fully, where it gets trapped into our body. That's what we believe trauma to be. When we experience these traumatic events, we do not allow our bodies to process these emotions, these waters, as thoroughly or as fully as we could possibly. And so it gets stuck.
And this doesn't have to be something quite as dramatic as me having a hot plate landing on my neck when I'm 1 year old and burning, holes in my skin and making me have to have skin grafts. It doesn't have to be as traumatic as going to war and witnessing all of that death and horrendous despair.
It could be as simple as someone vocally yelling at you, having a parent yell that you aren't enough, and that vibration stays in your water memory. And so it is pivotal that we are receiving whatever it is that is happening, and just having an awareness that, okay, this is happening. Now, how can I transmute what I experienced in a way where I can flush it out of my body again?
Yeah, I think that process is so important, especially when it comes to all the little tiny minor things. There's this expression that it's the piece of straw that broke the camel's back. And it's so these tiny little pieces of straw that collectively add up within our bodies, these little tiny things of, I took the glass out of the cabinet and it made a loud noise and now the baby's crying. Or I took something out of the fridge and it fell on the floor and now I have to wash it. Or I spilled some milk and now I'm crying. And so this expression of don't cry over spilt milk, I completely disagree with it. I think you should cry all you can when you spill the milk, because if you're storing any of that vibration in your body, it's freezing the water in your body. And frozen water creates dams, and dams don't allow for free-flowing water movement. And it's through this free-flowing movement of water and energy within our body that we are able to be in our truest expression of freedom.
So how do we unfreeze the waters in our body?
There are multiple ways to unfreeze the waters. Where is the best way? I think one of the best ways that I know about is simply to go back into water. surrounding yourselves in a body of water. This could be taking a soak in a stream or an ocean or a lake or a river, or for most of us, just going into a bath and drawing up a nice bath. I want to touch later on the importance of salt and the type of salts, because salt and water are going hand in hand with each other. And but going into the bathtub and completely submerging yourself in water, this way we drown out all of these external vibrations, and are only fully absorbed back into the womb space, this place of purity, this place of consciousness, this place of connection into the unseen, into the, we consider ourselves multidimensional beings. And what does multidimensionality mean? So when we can get back into water, we really connect back into our multidimensional selves in a very pure way. So by taking a bath or a shower, this is a great way. I think it's great to have a little straw, so that way you can have your body fully soaked and have a little straw or some snorkel gear in your bathtub, so you can completely submerge yourself back into water and still be able to breathe. And it's really important because our bodies are carrying certain toxins, our environments are carrying certain toxins, frequencies that don't serve us, disharmony. And our mental and emotional bodies are doing the same thing by carrying these blockages. And so when we're able to fully submerge ourselves in water, that's when the messages can come true. And so when we're able to look inside, then we can find those places far more easily where the water is frozen, because the water is all communicating to itself. And one of the beautiful things about water is it's one of the great balancers. Water is a balancing agent. There doesn't need to be as much water on the planet as there is, but the reason for it is because of all of the disharmonious vibration that we are experiencing and going on. Water is able to balance out that frequencies. And this is one of the reasons why it feels so good when we go to large bodies of water, when we go to the lake, when we go to the ocean, when we sit by a bubbling stream. This large body of water is so much more massive and containing so much more energy than us. It's able to withdraw all of those emotions and withdraw all of those experiences from us back into the larger body of water. And since the larger body of water is so massive and containing such a large energetic imprint, that it is therefore sharing that calmness with us. Have you ever seen an ocean that's stressed out or worried about how to pay the bills? Oceans don't do that. And so it's able to share that calmness and that expression with us. So going back into the bathtub, going back into the shower, and really getting yourselves into a meditative state. I have so much to share. I always get lost. So when we're underwater, that's when we can communicate with the cetaceans. These are the dolphins and the whales. These are the telepathic messengers that are allowing to release the code that water carries. So we mentioned water carries information, it carries vibration, and the water inside of us and the water everywhere is containing the full amount of information of anything that ever occurred on Earth, anything that will occur, anything that has occurred. The entire realm of the Akashic Records is contained within the water. Water is a multidimensional, conscious, living being. It's way more advanced than us. In fact, it's so advanced and futuristic, you can consider it almost ancient. And so water is a living, breathing entity. That's why it doesn't like getting stuffed in plastic bottles. That's why it doesn't enjoy being put in pipes where it has to go against gravity with pressure constantly pushing it. And it doesn't have access to airflow where it can breathe, so it suffocates and it dies. And so we have to bring water back to life. And so water is this ancient, futuristic, highly developed being that has decided to lower its vibrational frequency enough that it can be perceived on the third dimension for us to interact with. And so when you're under the water and the water is able to you're able to hear the water, and in the way that the dolphins and the whales do.
Or hear anything underwater. Even when you're underwater and you're humming, you can hear this. You can feel the vibration.
You feel the vibration even in your toes when you're humming.
And that's why women who are pregnant, it's really potent when you can start speaking to yourself, because you're actually really speaking to the spirit, soul, fetus that you're carrying. And this is what I'm also learning as I dive deeper into doula training, is that when you are pregnant or when you are expecting, it's so important the water that you are integrating into your body, because that water is really providing all the nutrients, all the physical elements of the fetus, and that's also why water birthing is really potent medicine for any mothers who are delivering, even the sound of water or looking at water. So we can talk a lot about that.
Yeah, I think that's actually important to talk about and touch upon now, because one of the most traumatic things that we ever experience is this separation from the womb.
Right.
We're in this beautiful water space. We all come from the primordial waters.
The saline solution, amniotic fluid, it's salty.
And that's where we spend, and if you think about it, that 9 months, each day that we live is representing a greater proportional amount of time that we experience. So that's why the older we get, each year is a lesser proportional amount of time of our total experience. And so that's why we have this experience of time acceleration as we get older, because it's a lesser proportional amount of time of our total experience. So our total experience for that first 260 days within the womb is it's almost an eternity inside of there. And so when we come out and there's an immediate temperature change, and I'd love to, if I can make time, go over temperature, which has a lot to do with unfreezing the waters and the stuck emotions in our heart. So there's a huge temperature change when you come out of the womb. And there's a huge amount of light difference. And you're going from breathing water to having to breathe air. And so it's this entire modality and shift. And then you're being separated from the mother. And it's the first time we actually experience separation away from the unity consciousness, or the unity experience of complete resonant harmonics. And so water birthing is super important. Allowing the water to the child to come out and be in water the same way as the womb, so that way the separation from mother and child isn't also having a separation from the divine primordial waters, is not also having that separation immediately from going from a water-based breathing into an air-based breathing. And so we can drastically reduce the amount of trauma on the planet, because everybody gets born. We can drastically reduce the entire collective human experience and the collective unconscious trauma that we're all holding, simply by changing the way that we have our birth patterns.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important.
Yes, being around any pregnant mothers, just remind them of how sacred this opportunity is to bring life into the planet, to honor that womb, that mystery, the primordial water that we hold within ourselves as women, and also just sharing that vibration of love, of gratitude, of awareness that this is life, this is energy, this is love. So moving forward, I would love to talk about why. What was it?
The importance of temperature?
The importance of temperature and the importance of flow, consistency.
Yes.
Yes. So you go.
I still want to get onto this idea of being underwater and submerged underwater. I mean, we can do a whole nother talk for another hour to get to the rest of the points we want to cover if necessary. But being underwater is so important to get back into that space where you're purely in the parasympathetic power mode of getting back into the alpha brainwave state, where you're able to have no stress and no concerns, that you're able to bypass all of the mental, emotional BS that we carry on, all of the internal chatter that keeps us from our truth. And that's where you're able to telepathically be able to connect back to the dolphins and the whales. Humans are unique in a species on Earth right now because we are the only ones that don't have a unique call, a unique sound. And I think it's really important to get under the water where we can find our whale sound, connect with our whale medicine, where we can find our unique voice, our unique calling. It's really important, as a lot of us realize, that when we breathe in and we have a collective, how good that feels. But when we can do that, that sigh of relief, that true expression, that vocalization, that our heart song comes out when we can be underwater and we can truly allow ourselves to be heard and find that voice. And so one of the great ways to experience unfreezing of the water is just by having that vocalization. And for me and for so many others that I know, that vocalization is way more profound when you're submerged in water. The acoustics of the way sound is expressed underwater is completely different than the way it's expressed and understood through air.
That's why there are some therapy treatments where people are recommended to get in the bathtub and yell underwater.
And we have this concept of humidity, which is how much percentage of water is in the air. Whenever we make sound, how is sound actually being communicated? It comes out through a vibration in the water within my larynx and in my vocal cords. And as it comes out, it's in this moist environment, over 80% humidity, 80% water in the air that's in my mouth. And that's coming out and immediately has this deadening effect, especially in dry places. So why is it that despite all of the blockages of trees and plants in the rainforest, it's so loud and dense, not only because of the amount of things that are making sound, but also because there's so much water in the air that it's able to communicate the sound as well. And that's why even if you get a bunch of people in if anybody's ever been to Burning Man, it's one of the driest deserts on the planet. And even with all the sounds being made and the 80,000 people that are crammed into this tight little city, it's not that loud. And if you were to take that same amount of people and that same amount of noise and you were to put it in the jungle, it would be so much louder. And that has to do with water is carrying the vibration of sound. And so that's why it's so important when you get into the water and submerge in water and you make sounds, it's carrying that vibration. So it's only the water in the air is what I'm saying, is that it's that is carrying the sound and the vibration through the air as the water.
So in relating this to trauma, when you are experiencing this, maybe it's with someone, it's really important to vocalize yourself in a way that is in I guess, the most nonviolent way possible. So questions are really, really great when communicating with people, because when we are able to ask questions, when we are able to vocalize our vibration and express this curiosity, this wonder of another person, we are able to be reflections for each other. And with that answer from the question, hopefully they provide an answer, we can be each other's sake of reflection and then continue this conversation of how feelings or emotions come up from the experience.
Yep. I think that's really important as well. I agree, 100%. The flow of vital energy, or the chi or prana or whatever you want to call it, the force in Star Wars, is so important because it's when we block this flow of vital energy that we become repressed and that trauma starts to build. And that's when we have blocks of emotions and the water freezes and we start having a damming of this emotional energy. So if you're sad, cry. If you're angry, yell. If you're hungry, eat. If you're tired, sleep. And so much of the problems and the trauma that we collectively carry is because we are not allowing ourselves to be in our fullest expression as we feel it. Especially as men, I think a lot of the toxicity of the divine masculine that is coming about is men don't cry. Why don't you be a man about it? Which means completely cut yourself off from the emotional self, from your emotional body. And this starts building up in the collective when you can't process. And I'm not saying this happens to just men, it just is a popular expression and kind of the modus operandum for the past few centuries plus. So definitely when you're angry, cry. When you're upset about something, say something about it. Have a conversation about it.
If you feel that you aren't able to have a conversation, another tool to use water as trauma therapy is to continuously be in motion. So our bodies are bodies of water. And so how do you keep this water in motion within our bodies? You can easily use your voice, but you can also use different mechanisms to move the water in your body, such as swishing. Tapping is a really potent resource. When you experience a trauma, you can sit with that and figure out where are you feeling it most. If you feel it in your heart, begin to tap in your heart and allow that vibration of whatever you were feeling be released in the body. That's also why dance is a really powerful tool to find healing. Even moving our bodies in a circle, so activating our chest and really allowing our spines to move. Not only that, but allowing our hips, our sacral space to find the really powerful movement that a lot of us have forgotten to utilize. And so this can be a really powerful tool for releasing the waters, keeping the waters in our bodies in motion.
Definitely. And I could go into a lot about just the metaphysical aspects of where we hold our pain. If we hold tension in our shoulders because of stress, if we have pain in our necks, it's because we have the inability to turn around and look at our fears and have our situation and face the situation and the fears at hand. If we have a headache, it's because we are totally in our mental body and we're thinking and we're thinking and we're thinking, and we're not allowing ourselves to sink into the heart space and really feel it. If we have a heartache, it's because we're not allowing ourselves to truly move the emotions in the way. So if we love someone, we're not telling them that we love them. If we hate somebody, we're not expressing that in a way that is serving someone and saying, this is displeasing to me, let's talk about it and find a solution. If we're having pain in our knees, it's because we're having the inability to hold the load and have an adapt. If we have pain in our ankles, it's because we're not feeling supported. And I could go on about that.
And these are all from your own experience. And so everything that we're sharing, like what our sister shares, if this doesn't resonate with you, in one ear, out the other.
Absolutely.
And again, we are just sharing this space to share our experiences. And if you have any questions, again, unmute yourself, please chime in or write the question down in the chat. Something else that we would love to talk about before our session comes to close is the importance of sunlight, the importance of light, and using light with water as therapy.
Absolutely. Water and light is the formation of all of creation. And water is so multidimensional and so much more expansive, and it encompasses so much more than we recognize it as it is currently. And as we continue into this age of Aquarius, the water bearer and the pourer of water, the waters will continue to flow and teach us information, and the importance of unlocking the code of water, that all the information, all the Akashic records held within the water is super important. And one of the ways to do this in activating water is sunlight. And one of the main ways that we can get sunlight in is two ways: our optical nerves through our eyes, as well as through our skin, our largest organ on our body. And the best way to incorporate sun into our bodies, again, is being submerged in water. And the interest in being submerged in water is, once again, there's so much toxicity going on in terms of the energetics of the planet. We have all these satellites beaming images, we have Wi-Fi signals, we have everybody on their cell phone. We have a lot of people who are having fear, holding a lot of emotional toxicity. And so this blocks and transmutes the beauty and the charging energy of the sun. The sun giving all of energy to everything within our solar system. And so the best way is to incorporate sunlight into your routine. So if it's possible, being submerged in the bathtub, again, and allowing the sunlight to come in through the window. If you have a bathroom that allows for that, I would highly recommend for that. Otherwise, getting out into a river or an ocean or a watering hole of some place where you can take a dip and be fully submersed in water and allow the sunlight to come through. If that's not possible, then just doing sun gazing. Whenever sun is at a 15-degree arc from the horizon, about yay angle or so. That's when you are safely able to have direct contact with the sun. One of the best ways is to move your eyes around the sun and keep a ring around the sun and keep moving closer and closer and closer and closer into the center of the sun until you're able to stare at the sun full on. That's been a really effective technique that I've found and others have shared as well.
So yes, during the sunrise and sunset. A really additional.
It's in that 15-degree arc angle from the horizon. That's ideal sun gazing time.
An additional resource in sun gazing, what we can do is earthing. So allowing our feet to connect with the earth. And so a question is, how does earth frequency relate to the water? Would you be able to touch on that?
Yeah, absolutely. The earth is an endless repository of negative ionic charge. And negative is just a term. You can use male, female, positive, negative, white, black. It's just whatever you want to use as a term for polarity, because we're still in this dualistic existence before we come back into unity consciousness. So the way science explains it is it's a negative ionic charge. It's the charge that is providing energy. And the atmosphere is containing a positive ionic charge, so energy that is drawing energy out of our bodies. And one of the ways that the earth, one of the main reasons that we can't drink rainwater or snowmelt water is because it doesn't contain the correct negative ionic charge, which can only happen when it's properly coming up through the earth. So the water, the full water cycle in water is mature and not juvenile water. Is when it falls in, it soaks deep into the watershed of the earth. It gets to this critical temperature of 4 degrees Celsius. That's it's about 39.2 degrees Fahrenheit. At that point, water is at its most dense. And then any change in temperature, which is really important, I want to cover that before we go, will allow the water to become more expansive. So water is it's one of the anomalies of water, is that it's at its most dense at 4 degrees Celsius. And so as any change of temperature allows it to expand, and that creates an implosion energy or a sucking energy, which then sucks it up through the earth. It's picking up minerals and crystals and hitting the bedrock. And so it's picking up all this vibrational information as it's coming up. And then that's when it surfaces, it comes out as a natural spring. And that's why natural spring water is the best possible water you can ever drink anywhere on the planet.
Also known as alkaline water, which is different than alkalized water.
Or a structured, revitalized living water, yeah.
So something else that I would love for us to talk about is salt. How the relationship of salt and water.
Yes. Salt is extremely important because...
Well, have you ever noticed that when you cry or when you sweat, what does that water taste like? That is salt water.
Yep.
And the largest body of water on the earth is the ocean, salt water. The fluid, the amniotic fluid in our wombs, that is also salt. So salt and water. It's a way to restructure the water. It is...
Salt provides the energy. In the most simplistic terms, it's where the energetic charge comes from. And so you can't have a living body of anything that it consists of pure water. So if you have water that's coming out of straight rainwater, if you're doing rainwater collection, it's not having the right mineral information, it's not having the right charge, and it's not having the right electric charge because there's no salt in it, there's no minerals in it. The same is true if you drink distilled water. It's not having any, or reverse osmosis water, or any water in its pure form that's been, in its pure form, because it's not containing the right minerals information and it's not containing the right salt. And salt is the energetic charge. It's what provides the energy. And one of the most important things that you can do is keeping the water, not only water, constant intake of water into the body, but also the constant intake of salt. And salt comes in many varieties of form. I'm not talking about the deionized table salt. That's equivalent to having processed sugar. It's very harmful to the body. it's a poison. But if you have properly mineralized salt, so this is salt that comes from ancient sea depositories or ancient ocean depositories. So the ancient way of putting salt water from the ocean and allowing it to be evaporated by sunlight, and then you collect the salt. So having a natural sea salt, that's wonderful. The Himalayan pink salt is one of the most popular. And
how do you feel about Epsom salt?
Epsom salt's great too. One of the things that's important for the baths is taking Epsom salt baths. Epsom salt is containing magnesium. One of the beautiful things that is in cacao, as well as its high magnesium content, and that's what Epsom salts are. It's very high magnesium. Magnesium sulfate is the chemical formation of Epsom salt. So yeah, if you're taking an average size bathtub, you want to add 4 cups or 1 quart of Epsom salt into that, and you'll really feel the difference. I think a lot of people put too little salt into their bath water, or have too little of quality salt in their diet as well, which causes a myriad of problems.
So the salt that we would not prefer you engage with is the table salt.
Table salt.
Table salt.
Deionized white salt. If the salt is
the little girl with the umbrella.
Yeah, the Morton salt that is so ubiquitous here in the United States it's just pure poison. It's killing my mom.
So
stop it.
So something else, does that answer the questions of salt and water? Yeah. And water structuring, what does that really mean? We have about 10 minutes.
Well, we can just keep going until everyone wants to disappear, I guess. You know, we'll let it flow. Let it flow. Okay, so what is water structure? Okay, the best way is to have a diagram. So if my body is an oxygen, H2O, and then we have 2 hydrogens, right? Here's a hydrogen, here's a hydrogen.
Let me try to prompt it up. I'll find it.
This oxygen and the 2 hydrogens, they can come in any type of shape. The way that the hydrogen bonds to the oxygen can come in many different shapes. So so think of it like a linking log or like a Lego. You know, if we build Legos, we can recombine the Legos in any different type of shape, and it's still, you know, 1 Lego of one shape and 2 Legos of 2 other shapes, but we can put them together all types of different ways and still make the same chemical configuration. You know, it's 1 oxygen Lego and 2 2 hydrogen Legos. And so
can you see the water molecule? 1 oxygen at the center, hydrogen on the sides.
We're getting tech savvy.
So that is what the structure of water looks like. And I will also include a link of a TED Talk, which also talks about the structure of water and why that's so important.
So yeah, the structure of water means it has to do with the hydrogen bond angle. So how the water is actually shaped. And so water molecules are super tiny. If we think back to the periodic table, we have hydrogen, which is number 1 on the periodic table, meaning it has 1 proton, 1 neutron, and 1 electron going around it. So it's super tiny. It's this tiniest building block on the 3D physical realm. And then we have oxygen, which is number 8. So when we have a number 1 and 2 number 8s together, we have a very, very tiny little molecule. And so water as it exists is actually 90% in the quantum field and only 10% in 3D reality. So I could go on about that too. The question was, what is the structure of water? So 2 hydrogens and 1 oxygen, they completely change shape. And they change shape based on the energetic input. So the temperature, if someone says love or gratitude to it, if it was in a plastic bottle or a glass bottle, all of these things are changing the geometric angle or the bond of the water. And since water is holding a magnetic charge, an electric charge, the shape of the water has a lot to do with the overall charge or the electric signal or the specific frequency vibration, which is the memory of the water.
The information that is able to be held.
That's being carried. And so when we take a look at healthy living organisms, whether it's a plant or an animal or a bacteria, all of these things are all containing water in a specific geometric formation. It's having a 104.5 degree angle between the hydrogen bonds. This happens to be the same angle as all the pyramids on the planet. So it's the sacred geometric pattern. And the sacred geometric pattern, when you put them all together, starts creating hexagons. And when you stack hexagons together, you get honeycombs. And so healthy living cells have millions of layers of thick of water, all at this exact geometric angle of 104.5 degrees, building hexagonal honeycomb sheets. And so when we talk about structured water, what water can come in any different type of shape. Tap water tends to be in 90-degree angles because it's coming through 90-degree pipes like this as it's coming up to your house. And water in nature is always having this bendy, swervy thing going on with it. And so when we talk about structuring water, we're taking apart the hydrogen off the oxygen and allowing it to reform. Now, nature is constantly restructuring its water through evaporation and then condensation. So rainwater is reforming or restructuring the water, which is why you always see snowflakes in this perfect hexagon symmetry. The same thing is happening with ice. When water is frozen, it's restructuring itself into this perfect hexagonal symmetry. And that's why people who drink glacier melt water tend to live to be 120 plus years old in these blue zones that are having access to beautiful glacier meltwater. So as water goes through a phase change, it's restructuring itself. Also harmonious frequencies such as love and gratitude, this will restructure the water as well, putting prayer and intention into it. And on a larger scale, when we're talking about providing water to entire communities, or if we're talking about providing water to an entire farm, or if you're trying to fill up massive water bottles, we use technology. The technology that requires no electricity and no parts to replace, no maintenance, is made out of 24 karat gold, so it lasts absolutely forever. And on a larger scale, when it's large quantities of water that you're doing all at once, we love using technology to restructure the water. So I really hope that answers the question as to what structured water is. It's changing the shape of water and how water molecules are relating to each other to create hexagonal sheets, which is what is the very definition of what a healthy living cell is.
Because that structure of water allows the water to give your body or the cell energy, right? So depending on the structure of the water molecule will depend on the energy that the water is providing for the cell. And around every single cell on Earth, there's a layer of water called exclusion zone water, also known as H3O2 or structured water. There's a video link that I sent in our chat that talks about what is structured water, exclusion zone water. If anyone's familiar with what a chia seed looks like, when chia seeds are soaked in water, there's a gelatinous layer around the chia seed that is exclusion zone water. So imagine that every single cell on Earth has this gelatinous layer of water around it. And this is the water that we are trying to integrate into our bodies constantly. So if the water isn't in this life-giving structure of this beautiful hexagonal shape, then our bodies internally have to restructure that water. And that is by vibrationally letting that flow, allowing that higher frequency that we are familiar with to come back into our information, our remembrance. So something else that is pretty potent that we believe is really powerful to understand is the ice caps that are melting in the environment due to due to slipping my head right now, the environmental changes that are happening, right? So there are ice caps that are melting, and frozen water contains this memory. What is happening to all these ice caps that are now melting? This is allowing us to create new memories, allowing us to receive this newly melted ice cap and integrate the memories that we are ready to create on Earth, right? So
it's this ancient, all water is containing all of memory, and frozen water, as we mentioned, is a screenshot. It's frozen in time. It's a time machine of stored information. And yes, as the water melts off all of the polar ice caps, all of that ancient information, all of the ancient knowledge is now resurfacing more and more because the water is being incorporated in the ocean, and water has this quantum information exchange. So we have an understanding and understanding of all of the water information, because all water is sharing water, all information quantumly. And all of the information of all the Akashic records is stored within us. And I'd love to do another water talk at some point about how to access the Akashic records through the water in our own bodies, because it's all stored there. But I want to get to some of the questions to make sure that we're touching on them. Chrissy, yes, you can definitely make your own sea salt water. You could just put it in short pools, short collecting pools, and then allow it to evaporate. And there's some YouTube videos on that in terms of the ancient way of making and collecting sea salt. So definitely have some fun with that. Apartment 20, Viv, you say about the melting ice caps. Yes, definitely. We just covered on that. So true. Thank you for asking. What is the best type of water for cleaning? An enema, net distilled or alkaline? So the best way for an enema, I love doing enemas. It's such a great way for clearing. The best way is to have whatever the highest solvency potential is. So when water is containing the correct electric charge and is having the right amount of dissolved solids in it, it has the greatest solvency potential. So it's able to draw out the most toxins. So personally, in my enema practice, I love adding, again, salt and then structuring the water, because when you structure the water, it lowers the surface tension and allows it to have a greater solvency potential, so it draws out more toxins. And then adding just a little bit of activated charcoal and clay. The charcoal helps activate the release, and the clay helps absorb the toxins so they're not reabsorbed immediately by your body. And so just having this, but you only need very, very, very small amounts of each, because once you start getting to more, then you're reducing the solvency potential. So a little bit of salt, a little bit of activated charcoal, a little bit of clay, and then make sure the water is structured. And so the best way, I think one of the questions was, how can we structure water? There's a variety of ways. Putting it into the full moon energy. The moon is regulating the water. It changes the electricity in our blood. The moon was put on this earth to be a frequency modulator. So it was helping,
amongst other things.
And it was also helped to balance the spin, because when our planet was first going, it didn't have an even amount of spin, so the seasons were all crazy. And so the moon was there to help regulate the spin of the earth, as well as become a frequency modulator, so that we could have more balanced an emotional state on the planet as well. And I got lost on a tangent. What was the question I was answering?
So does water that is structured also become alkaline?
So how do we structure the water? Yeah, full moon energy. That was the question. Full moon energy is really important. Putting it into full sunlight. If you can, we didn't even get to color therapy, but putting a color over it to allow certain frequencies of the sunlight to hit. That's super important depending on what you're trying to get out of your water. There's different frequencies of light, different colors within the visible spectrum and beyond the visible light spectrum that can be very important and beneficial. And so you can put gel layers over your glasses of water and then allow them to charge in sunlight. Another way is by adding a high quality mineralized salt and baking soda. Baking soda is alkaline. It's sodium bicarbonate. It's super cheap. It's super valuable. It's super alkaline. It's wonderful stuff. So just adding a little bit of baking soda and some salt to your water. Another way is vortexing the water, so spinning it or building a vortex out of 2-liter pop bottles and infusing them together, and then you can create this tornado thing. They have YouTube videos extensively on how to do that. It's a popular children's science experiment, but that's another way, is vortexing the water.
You can also add crystals.
You can add crystals into your water.
Or just around the vessel.
And crystals are just another phase of water. There's multiple different phases of water beyond solid, liquid, gas, and crystals are crystalline, which is the densest but also the lightest form. I won't go into that.
You
Anyway,
can also
you can
use
add crystals to
copper.
water. You can put it in a copper vessel, leave it overnight exposed to air. So don't seal the copper vessel, but leave it open to air. So you have this property of burning that's going on with the water. So it's exchanging atmospheric hydrogen and oxygen with the water. And then it's picking up the mineralization information of copper. Copper being, if you're looking at the 13 chakra system, it's related to number 4. It's the metal of the fourth chakra. And so that has to do a lot with the foundation of our physical being. So copper is really effective. It's also really popular in Ayurvedic medicine. Another way to structure water is using the technology, either the one that we provide or some other technologies out there. I've tried pretty much all the technologies out there, and from my personal experience and from all the science data, it shows the ones that we offer are super great at structuring water as well. But the number one and most important way that you structure water is through intention, vibration, prayer, song. Sing to your water.
By you.
Say thank you to the water. I love you, water. So much gratitude for the water.
Yes.
Singing a little song. That's the best way to structure water.
And do you use just regular tap water?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. And do you drink the tap water in New York? Just curious.
Yes.
Not when it's not structured.
But we go through a process. So the process that we use for tap water is we put it through just a carbon block filtration, a baked carbon block filter. And that takes out a lot of it changes the taste significantly. The only reason that we filter the water, honestly, is because it changes the taste. I prefer the way it tastes. The most important thing is structuring the water. There is a lot of information about how when a great example of how to structure water with purely intention is in Japan. They had this lake which was filled with algae blooms and was killing off all the fish in the lake. And so they had 3,000 school students do a ceremony where they prayed on the lake, and they prayed on the lake for 6 hours. And within 2 weeks, all of the toxicity measurably through science was removed. And so how is it that all of the physical toxins were filtered out of the lake simply through prayer and intention by 3,000 school students? There's nothing physically there. And the reason is because everything's vibration. So if you remove the vibratory nature of anything, it physically disappears. And so this is the metaphysical reality of our existence, our multi-dimensionality experience. So what we do is we take the water, we add some salt, we add a little bit of baking soda, we add a little bit of mineral powder. The mineral powder that we use comes from corals that have died, and so they grind up the corals that have died. So they're sustainably harvested from already dead corals. We grind up those corals, add just a little tiny bit. Then we pour the water through the technology that we offer through the website. This is the travel version that has come with us everywhere we go around the world. So, and then we sing and pray over the water, and then we keep it in a vessel that is sitting on a large crystal disc that's also available on our website, and inside of an egg-shaped glass container that has a crystal wand sitting inside of it.
We're a little extra.
We're super extra
on the water.
So that's what we do with our water in New York. But it all starts with tap water, because all water is sacred. Every single molecule of water is sacred. You just have to return its sacredness back to it. We have to remember that all water is sacred, and we have to allow the water itself to remember that it itself is sacred. So even tap water is sacred. And tap water just happens to be the most available and cheapest and most convenient solution. I mean, it's you just show up and we make it sacred again. But this device right here, we went to the bathroom at a gas station in El Salvador and took the water directly out of the tap and poured it through this and said some prayers over it, and we drank that. That's what we do. That's our whole process, is this.
We've also done this in Thailand and in
Mexico and everywhere, and the locals look at us like we're crazy drinking the water, but we have technology and some knowledge of how to make water divine again, and that's what we love. And
some love.
We love to
and
share.
We try to share that as well.
Love to share it.
And we also have a formula on our website called Mineral Magic, which is all of those minerals that we just talked about in a formula bottle, 1 ounce formula bottle, which you only need 1 drop in 16 ounces. And you pray over that baby, and it's magic.
Yes.
So
Remineralizing the water through, and yeah, our Mineral Magic's great at doing that. So minerals also will restructure water, and crystals. I mentioned that too.
can we talk about, yeah.
Hey, I just wanted to backtrack on charging the water in the sunlight. Do we have to use like UV ray sensitive bottles or coverings? Or is it fine if I just put it like in a glass bottle and let it sit in the sun?
UV is preferred. UV protected bottles, definitely. And so you can, most all medicine bottles are coming UV protected, or your kombucha bottles. So if, I don't know if some people have those kombucha bottles, but you can just save those because those are UV. Brown glass has been used for centuries. And that's also a form of UV protection. But you can also do this by just getting a UV film. It's super, super cheap. And that way any of your glass bottles can be UV filters just by getting a UV film, and you put that over it. And we didn't get a chance to talk about it, but color therapy is incredibly potent. I think that's the future of medicine is going to be color vibratory medicine. And you can also, depending on what effects, get a different gel color and cover that over and allow the sun to come through in a specific way through that to that color filter. So yes, but if you don't have a UV protected filter, it's fine also, because the sun is containing such positive amounts of information. If you have the salt and the baking soda and you leave the water in the sun, you don't even need a UV filter. Just the UV filter is going to help, because what is ultimately structuring the water is the infrared spectrum. The far infrared spectrum of light is specifically what's doing all the work. And that's one of the reasons that infrared saunas are such a great healing tool as well.
What do you think about giving birth in the water?
It would be less traumatic if it depends.
It definitely depends. I've been studying this a little deeper because I would love, love, love to just facilitate water births. And I think it really depends on the mother, what kind of state is the mother in, because some mothers would really love to birth in water, and some mothers are okay with just having water played in the background. So it really depends on the relationship, though it can be very healing for the mother to be in the ocean as she's pregnant, to be in touch with the ocean, because the dolphins are communicating with the fetus inside the womb. And this fetus is preparing for their life through the dolphin telepathy, which is pretty powerful.
And how long should babies stay in the water?
Babies can stay in the water. I mean, what's most important is the contact with the mother and the child. So
immediate skin contact.
Immediate skin to skin contact. And there are stories of babies being birthed in the ocean, and once that happens, allowing the baby to find equilibrium with their breath and potentially be able to swim in the water. But it's really important for that mother to have skin to skin contact. So catching the baby with her hand and then eventually allowing the baby to swim to her. You could still have the umbilical cord connected as well.
So next is Chrissy missed a couple things. So Chrissy, are you listening? A little thumbs up. I'd love to answer some of your questions. What about the clay, activated charcoal, and salt? That's for enema. So that's taking a bag of water, putting the special stuff in it. You put it into your anus to clean out your colon and your large intestine. And that flushes out a lot of the toxins that ends up residing there, which causes a huge amount of problems for most people. Colon cancer, colorectal cancer, irritable bowel syndrome, having the wrong microbiome in your gut, which is the ultimate intelligence of the body. We have, so that's for enema practice, which is definitely an important water practice for cleaning. What else?
Is it okay to just use tap water in the water structuring device? Yes, this water structuring device has crystals inside of it. So it's actually mineralizing the water as you screw it into your sink or your shower head, which is pretty awesome if you live in an apartment, because that's what we do right now.
So you can use it directly, because what it's doing is it's resetting the water's memory. And so all of the frequencies that are in the water are now being deleted. And when you delete the frequency, you delete the physicality. So it just doesn't exist anymore. When it comes to chlorine, chlorine is a gas that they use to sterilize the water. And so it's a dissolved gas in the water. And when you break water apart, like this device does, and you put it back together again, it's releasing all the gas that's inside of it. So it completely eliminates chlorine in this way. I got a bunch of information. You can go to the website. We have PDFs galore all about this kind of stuff on the water and how it deletes everything on a frequency basis and how it completely removes the need for filtration. One of the studies on there real quickly is when you filter water, the vibration still remains, the frequency still remains. And so they've done tests with mercury and lead and arsenic and all these heavy metals where they filter it out of they filter all these heavy metals out of the water, and they still feed them to laboratory mice. And they all die of the toxicity levels because the vibration of the arsenic and the lead and the mercury and these types of things are still in the water. And so even though they filtered it out, they chemically tested, they're not in the water, they're still dying because the frequency is still there, and the frequency is everything. I look forward to the color therapy workshop. Yes, definitely. I think we said, okay.
So if you want to do a water demonstration, you can hold this cup. I just want to show you how quickly these work, because if you screw it underneath a faucet, it can structure how many gallons? A gallon of water in a minute?
No, it does 17.5 gallons per minute.
Oh, that's a lot.
So it's a lot. It's faster than the water pressure in any municipal city anywhere in the world. So it'll handle more than that.
So this is how quickly it comes out. And this is how quickly I'm pouring. And there are larger devices that you can purchase on the website that can structure 30 gallons of water in a minute, which is what we are raising funds for. All donations for this conversation is going to a Huichol community in Mexico. They are reviving a well, and we are working with a brother who organizes Water Now. He does water filtration systems all over the world. And we met him in Costa Rica, showed him the device, and we are collaborating. So we're super excited for this technology to be used in communities that really need living, loving, drinkable water. And so, and not everyone needs an enema. Enemas are wild. You can do an enema just by fasting, drinking water, and allowing that to flush the body as well. And are there any other questions? We love you all so much. Thank you for being a part of this and supporting our journeys together. We are so here for you, and we're so excited to continue these conversations because James and I have a lot to share, and I know that all of you have so much to share as well. So we definitely want to continue this conversation and have more people who are involved with water education join us in this conversation as well, because it's so important and so necessary. And we know all of you are super magical in all of your own ways.
Yes, and we love you all so much. It's such a pleasure, and we have so much gratitude. And it's such a pleasure and an honor to be here with you all in your presence, for sure. I see one last question here in the chat from Chrissy as well. It said, I missed the answer on whether structured water is the same as alkaline water. The answer is no. And I think there's a lot of confusion about alkaline versus alkalized water. Most water that's being marketed and sold as alkaline water is actually alkalized water, which means it's been being put through an artificial process where a high amount of electricity is being zapped, it's being electrocuted. And then they have two different diode poles with a different charge, one positive, one negative. And so that separates the water into a positive and negative charge after it gets shot with a huge amount of electricity. And that is alkalized water. So they're forcing it into H, or hydrogen positive, and hydrogen negative water. One of the So that is alkaline water. It's just changing pH. pH being a measure of alkalinity or basicness. pH stands for powers of hydrogen. Hydrogen coming from the Latin hydro, water, genesis, creation. So hydrogen meaning the ability to create water. And so we are all water beings within our body, inside of our cells, our mitochondria. They have their own DNA. It's the most ancient form of life is mitochondria. And this is still what we use now to produce our energy in our bodies. And mitochondria run on hydrogen. So in science, it's called the Krebs cycle or the oxidase-oxidase cycle. It's which the mitochondria in our cell is taking hydrogen and turning it into ATP, adrenotriphosphate. That is how we create energy within our body. And so whenever the way the cell takes energy is it takes that H3O2. So H3O2 meaning it has one extra hydrogen and one extra oxygen over normal H2O. It's taking that hydrogen from H3O2 off the water surrounding the cell, bringing it into the mitochondria, using that hydrogen to create ATP so that the body has energy. Then that has a free oxygen that goes into our blood, which helps carry all of the nutrients in our blood. So the process of drinking already water, structured water, which is H3O2, it's already in that biological format that your body has. So it's a huge net energy savings. So when it comes to drinking structured water, that means you live longer. That's why people who live in blue zones live to be 120 years, give or take, who are all drinking this beautiful structured water. It reduces the aging. It makes your DNA replicate better. You have, I mean, for me personally, it's completely cleared out or mostly cleared out the mental fog that I have. Allows me to communicate more expressively. I sleep less, I sleep better. I still sleep a lot though, but I sleep less than I used to. I sleep better. I have less mental fog. I have more energy to do what I need. And then when it comes to plants, you grow more food whenever you're giving living entities structured water.
Or your beans are ready to sprout in a day.
Or your beans sprout in a day as opposed to 3 days. Or if you want to germinate seeds for growing, they germinate in a day as opposed to 3.5 days. And the list goes on and on. If you want to clean, you can use less cleaning solution. If you want to make beer, you have less yeast that you have to use. If you're growing food, you don't have to have pesticides anymore because the plants themselves are so robust that they fight off the pests themselves. If you're growing medical marijuana or cannabis or CBD, pH is super important. So you don't have to have pH balancers when you have structured water. And the list goes on and on and on. We have a whole list of benefits of structured water, again, available on our website. And
under the education tab.
yes.
Any more questions?
You mentioned one of the big vision for Watering Hole for us is to provide the education that the structure of water is super duper important. And we want, as we mentioned, we would love to go in and get to all of these places that are installing clean water systems in areas that need it most around the world, because they still don't get it that the structure of the water, the information, the vibratory information that the water is carrying is way more important than the filter. So all of these water charities that are going in and installing clean water systems around the world, they're only using filtration and they're only getting to maybe 10% potential. But if we can incorporate the structured water potential, not only are we giving them better water, but we're increasing the effectiveness of that water. We're making less water go further. We're hydrating more people. We're growing more food in those communities. We're keeping them healthier while using less of the precious little water they have. And so our big mission is to be able to provide these water systems, the water technology that we work with, into those communities and into the pre-existing water systems in order to get the greatest efficiency and effectiveness into those systems possible.
If these technologies were involved with the water infrastructure systems in this nation, we would be putting the plastic water bottle businesses out. Because
the bottled water industry in the United States alone is $30 billion a year. In order to incorporate structured water technology into all the tap municipal water sources in the United States, would be 1.1 billion. So a 30th of what's the collective is spending on bottled water alone.
So if anyone has any connections with water infrastructure people, let us know, connect us with them, specifically Charity Water. Been trying to get a hold of them since we lived in New York, but we'd love to share a water song with all of you to bring our beautiful session to closure. And this song was shared with me during my second water ceremony, and it was taught by Auntie Beatrice Jackson. She lives in Michigan, and she is a water protector and does water walks annually. She's from the Anishinaabe tribe, and you can sing this song without any drums or rattles, and I will gladly post the link of more details of this song on the Facebook group. We'll sing it 4 times to honor the directions. If you have your water with you, the translation is, water, I love you, I thank you, I respect you. Vive Izageigo Imigwechawenemigo Ijawenemigo Vive Izageigo Imigwechawenemigo Ijawenemigo Vive Izageigo Imigwechawenemigo Ijawenemigo Vive Izageigo Imigwechawenemigo Ijawenemigo. Thank you, water. I love you, water. I respect you, water. Thank you, family. We love you so much. Thank you for joining us. We look forward to sharing more conversations with all of you. Love you.
And if you have any questions, please reach out to us any way possible. We'd love to answer questions and be in contact. And if you need any support from us, reach out to us. We're happy to be in service.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.